Blessed love, blessed love. Yeah, this is just a quick update to say from tomorrow morning for tomorrow's readings, I'm going to be changing the Bible that I'm reading from each day, and I'm now going to be reading from this version of the Bible, and it's edited by Samuel Isaac Harrington. His name is Samuel Isaac Harrington. So the main wording is the same as the one I've been reading from. The reason I'm changing to this one is it's got the Ethiopian books in order, chronological order of how they actually appear in the Ethiopian Bible, whereas the book that I've been reading from before. Those of you that know, I kind of talked about this in my very first video. It has the traditional New Testament and the Old Testament um, up front, and then it has another section at the end of the book, which is all the Ethiopian books that are missing from the traditional book. Whereas this one actually has it in order, because what I was going to have to do was stop at a certain point, then go to the Ethiopian book when it would have appeared, and kind of doing a bit of a back and forward sort of thing. And I didn't really want to do that, so I've got this book, which is now more of a flow reading. Also, the difference is that there's books that this one has got of the Ethiopian books that aren't in the other version, but it's also vice versa. There's books that the other version have got that this one hasn't got. So there will be a time when I'm picking back up the other version as well, just to get the complete work. And anyone who's tried to buy the Ethiopian Bible will have found this. It's really fraught trying to find a version which is, got all of the books in there. And because there's still some books in the Ethiopian Bible, particularly at the end of the New Testament, that haven't actually been translated into English at all. And that's still waiting to happen. So every version you get slightly different. So you have to kind of really read the small print and all that kind of stuff. But like I say, I still will be using the Dr. Lewis Spencer book, because that has books that this one doesn't have, but this has books that that one doesn't have. So it's going to be a bit of a checkerboard thing. But yeah, from tomorrow I will be using this version of the Bible. So just going to show the front cover again. Actually, one thing I also wanted to mention was that the section from the Bible reading today of Moses and God wanting to kill Moses, and it's an interesting one. I've been reading about it since the reading this morning as well. That actually the scholars who put together the Bible, the various Council of Nicaea and the various that is kind of thought that they didn't know where to put that passage. It's part of Moses's life and something that happened to him, but because it's such a different thing, they weren't sure where to place it in Exodus, and they thought that's the best place to place it after he leaves Midian to go towards Egypt to meet Pharaoh, but it could have been placed at any time. So that's one theory as well, why it's such a weird fragment, is because they just didn't know where to place it in the Bible, but they didn't want to leave it out. And this relates to another thing as well, that it's not a nice thing, I'm sure. It doesn't present God in a good light, the fact that he wanted to kill Moses, but they still wanted to keep it in there. And I think this is something about our change in relationship with God as well, because I think in these times, if you said you're angry with God, it can sound very blasphemous, or if you're disappointed in God, or these kind of things. Well, actually, that still proves that God exists. If you're angry with God, then you're still acknowledging he exists. And there was a really interesting Jewish Orthodox cartoon strip that I saw years ago, and it had these Jewish, like Hasidic Jews, arguing with God, and they were kind of questioning and arguing with him, but they still had deep belief in him, because you can't argue with something that doesn't exist. So I think it's always interesting when atheists and agnostics try to tell you, oh, your God this, and why does God do that, and he can't be a very nice God if he does that. But that's still acknowledging he exists. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really interesting point. It's not sanitized the Bible. There's a lot of murky things in there that are kind of like, oh, that's not very nice to read. But it's kind of showing the complexity. But I like the fact that they kept that in there, because actually it's showing, okay, yeah, did God always get everything right? Do you know what I mean? And it sounds blasphemous to say that, but actually, that's the reality of how it's written, sort of thing, really. Even in the chapter before that where it says God remembered people of Israel as if he'd forgotten. It's kind of messy, but there's still that proof that he exists and that faith that he exists, which I think is really interesting. So actually, I didn't come on to say all of that, but while it is on my mind, I thought I'd just throw that in. All right, but on to work now. Blessed love, and have a good day.